Hello, welcome to our discussion of CSS, the Cascading Style Sheet. So what is CSS? If HTML is the structure of the web page, then CSS is the appearance of the web page. That can be from simple visual appearance, the color, the font size, to complex page layout. CSS is able to take any element and position it anywhere on the page. So our text and an example. So next we'll look at the Mozilla Developer Network page that contains the text CSS Basics on MDN. Look for that search in the search engine, and you'll find the page that we're going to use. So we're on the MDN site, CSS Basics. What is CSS? And down here there's a nice diagram here. Anatomy of a CSS rule set. So you see a selector. The selector selects an element from the HTML page, and there's different types of selectors. This type of selector here, the basic selector, selects an element from the page or a tag from the page, in this case selecting a paragraph tag. So all paragraphs will be affected by this rule set. The color is the property being affected here is the color, and then colon, and then the property value. This is the preset color value. There's a lot of different ways to express color, and we'll review several of them in subsequent lectures. But for right now, we're using a preset red here. And the entire thing is the declaration. That is the property, colon, plus the property, the new property value is the entire thing is called the declaration. And then this is a rule set. The rule set can contain more than one rule, rules being separated by a semicolon. Next, we'll look at CSS used on a page. So in the editor, on the Visual Studio Code editor, on the right, you'll see the style sheet here. Let's discuss a little bit about the structure of these of the web page itself in terms of where files are. So we have index.html at the root of the page. Typically, HTML files go at the root, and then subsequent folders containing resources. I have an image folder here and a CSS folder here. That's what we're viewing here with this. So then we'll see how that's linked. This is an external style sheet, and this is the preferred form of style sheets, but there's different ways to express styles in CSS, and we'll see all of them in this example. So you can see the effect of this style over here. Here we call out a paragraph tag, color, deep pink, and see that color here, and font size 400%. We don't see that carried through, so then we'll see why. And then we do see this paragraph, this style carried through. The border style is solid here, in both cases. This shows that rule sets are cumulative. That is, you don't just have one shot to describe what a paragraph will look like. CSS will accumulate the rule sets as they go. Next, we'll look at why these two paragraphs, even though they're both paragraphs, are styled differently. The answer is looking at the index.html page. We'll look at the Chinese example. And notice the Chinese paragraph has a rule set expressed through an attribute of the paragraph, the style attribute. So this is a complete rule set. So the meaning it can express more than one declaration. Here, expressing the color sandy brown and the font size 200%, and we see the results of that over there. Notice that these don't override the settings for the border that was specified in the style sheet. So that comes through. Rules, properties that are overwritten, the last one wins in CSS. The closest style definition that's closest to the element being styled wins in the case of contradictory styles. But the styles also accumulate as they go. So if a property is not overwritten, it just accumulates. Here, to explain why the Japanese example doesn't look like how it's styled in the style sheet, we see another form of style being expressed inside the HTML page via the style tag. So here, these are full-up rule sets like we viewed in the CSS page over here. No difference. They're just within the style tag here directly in the HTML. And again, the closest rule wins, in this case overriding the font size expressed here of 400%, instead saying another way of expressing small font size is by relative definitions, extra small here, and you see the result of this. And because that rule is closest to this paragraph, it wins. So in this example, we see the three ways to express CSS. Locally, through a style attribute of any tag. Embedded in the page itself via the style tag, also in the header section. And then a link, which pulls in an external style sheet, in this case, and in the relative folder CSS, and styles here. So that's pulling from this. This rel here is short for relationship, and this describes to the browser what type of link that this is, in this case a style sheet. So of the three, which is preferred? Well, CSS is meant to style a web page, but also to lend a consistent style to the entire site. Well, you can't really list a consistent style through the entire site if you're all the time calling out local styles in each individual tag. That only affects the single tag. Likewise, this style is embedded in this one page, so it can't express or affect the look of other pages that make up your site. This way, linking to an external style sheet, the link can be included in many pages, and therefore you can have the same consistent look in many pages. Also, this expresses a separation of concerns. If you have, let's say, a 4,000 line long CSS style, and it's embedded in a 10,000 line long, believe me, I've seen them, HTML page, then you have a lot of text, this text to go through to understand how the HTML and the CSS is working. It's best to have a separate link. That gets it out of the way. When we're considering our HTML, we can consider our HTML. And then when we consider our style, we can pull up our style and consider that. So of the three ways to express CSS, the best way is through an external link to an external style sheet. And that's what we'll pretty much do throughout the remaining parts of our course. So time to review. HTML provides the structure of the web page. HTML does have attributes that affect the appearance. You'll see them. But these attributes are deprecated in favor of CSS. So when we are studying HTML, we're just going to study HTML as a structural piece of our page. We're not going to look at attributes that affect the appearance of the HTML. It's best to leave the structure to HTML, that's its job, and CSS affecting the appearance of the page. That's the way we'll learn it. So CSS provides the appearance, and declarations are in the form of the property, colon, and then a property value, semicolon. Declarations are expressed in rule sets. Those rule sets can be inline with this style attribute. So that each element can be styled locally, very locally, through that attribute. It can be included in the page with a script tag, or it can be external CSS via a link tag. That's preferred. CSS should control the look of the site, not just a single page or a single element. CSS rule sets accumulate. So if they don't contradict one another, CSS rule sets accumulate as the CSS and the HTML is interpreted and understood by the browser. Rule sets are replacing. So the closest in the case of contradictory rules, the closest declaration with the same property wins. That concludes our introductory discussion of CSS.